Now, as I mentioned in all these videos, obviously movies are fictional. Obviously, there's a lot of unrealistic scenarios and things that happen in them, but that doesn't mean that you can't use them as a good thought exercises for just workshopping, brainstorming your own preparedness or lack thereof, what you would do in a certain situation. I've noticed that even just in my own personal life, one of the things that can help out tremendously, whether you're talking about, this is mostly evident in things like physical things like sports, martial arts, shooting, things like that, is that the what's called the OODA loop, or the observe, orient, decide, act. It's basically the entire thing that you process that your brain has to go to from a stimulus arriving to you acting on it. You have to observe what's happening. Obviously, if someone's coming behind you and sucker punches you, there's no OODA loop for you. But you have to observe the problem, orient yourself to that, whether that be physically and mentally, to be in a position to act physically, decide what the problem is. Then you have to decide. So obviously, once you've oriented physically and mentally to evaluate the problem, you have to make a decision. Sometimes that is a moral, an ethical decision, like a self-defense scenario. Usually involves a bunch of logistical factors as well, like your backstop, your aim, things like that. And then you have to act, and the act part is the physical action, like I said, aiming, pulling the trigger, doing your martial arts move, running away if that's a decision, things like that. So anytime you come across a scenario, like a real-life scenario of self-defense, or even something in sports, like someone's throwing a ball at you, whatever, your mind has to go through this OODA loop. And one of the things that you can do to quickly speed up that process, or to make it so it's much quicker in real life, is to train your mind so that you pretty much can almost skip the D portion, the decision. It becomes almost like an instinct, like memory, reflexes, muscle memory, things like that. And also you can extremely quicken the amount of time that it takes to do the orientation and the action. So obviously, talking about fighting or something like that, if someone comes up and swings a punch, swings at you to take a punch, if that's something you've drilled a bunch of times, you can, like I said, you can pretty much bypass the decision-making portion because it's so much in, the block or maybe the counter strike is so ingrained that you're not really deciding to do that in the same sense that you would be if it had never happened to you before. So you can do that by training your mind mentally as well, simply by thinking about a scenario enough and what you would do in it. When a similar scenario pops up in the future, you will have kind of shortened that process by already having made a decision about what you would do in a similar situation and at least oriented yourself mentally. Obviously, you still have to go through the observation by being alert. You still have to go to the physical orientation, and you still have to execute the action. But even something as simple as watching these goofy movies, thinking about what you would do, and deciding now can help speed up that process in the future. Also, it can help you to take the necessary steps now that you would need to execute those actions in the future. If you make the decision, okay, I would need to shoot this guy, or I need to restrain this guy, or I need to do this particular fire start or whatever, then you can start thinking about what I would need skills-wise and equipment-wise to make that happen and start preparing accordingly. So I think there's a lot of, besides the obvious, fun entertainment factor of going through these movies and figuring out what you would do as just kind of a cool game, I do honestly think that it can help. So with general preparedness.